Hello, welcome to TrueHoop with me, Jarod Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I am doing great, Jarod.
And CEO Henry Abbott. How are you, sir?
Only here because of my angry group texting over the weekend, which got me invited. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Well, whenever there are topics that I feel like we need to keep grounded and so here's a weird metaphor. Keep grounded and elevated at the same time, right? Think about that.
Relevated.
Yeah. I like that. We have to have Henry on because, he just keeps things like he asks larger questions. But what about this? And what about this? And so that's what we're going to do here. So Kyrie Irving, the Dallas Mavericks, they've been struggling a bit of late. As of right now, they are out of the play-in. Not even in the play-in. It's most unfortunate. And when you talk about Kyrie, he's a polarizing guy. You have people who just want to attack him. And you have his fans who just love him to death, right? And don't see any of his flaws. And so what we want to do here is try to have a little bit more of a nuanced conversation and discuss the various ways in which, Kyrie, the player, the teammate, etc. And a lot of fans right now are upset because they look at it like a basic science experiment, right? We subtracted Dorian Finney-Smith and who else left?
Spencer Dinwiddie.
And we inserted Kyrie Irving. When those guys left, we were fourth in the West. Kyrie comes back. Now we're out and we're out of the play-in. Well, Kyrie's the biggest variable. It must be his fault. He is the reason why we stink. And I don't think it's that quite cut and dry, right? I think they're not good defensively, and they were not good defensively before Kyrie got there. So that hasn't changed. And there are a lot of different things to address. But I want to make sure that we talk about this in an intelligent way. If you guys want to get angry, you know what shows to watch to get angry. We're gonna talk about this astutely. So I first want to start, David, with on the floor. What do you see Kyrie Irving doing for the Mavericks or to the Mavericks on the floor?
I mean, he's fine. He's a hell of a playmaker. I think he's playing selflessly.
Selfless people, not selfish.
Selflessly for sure. Yeah, he could score a lot more if he wanted to. He seems like I don't think there's ever been on the floor. I mean, he and Luka both were accused initially of being too unselfish. If you remember, They lost the game because of it. The last play of the game. Anyone that suggests that he is the reason why this particular team is failing just doesn't understand basketball. That's not to say he's not been the problem other places and for different reasons and at different levels. But I don't see anything on the court that would make me think for one moment he's to blame. And you already said it. They're bad defensively, and they traded their best defensive player. Like, this isn't rocket science. Yeah. You know how I feel. I always look at coaches. And I feel like there's a big target there. He won't be there next year.
Yeah.
I don't think.
We'll talk about that. Henry, it's interesting because what prompted it was there was a bunch of tweets firing around all weekend, and you hopped into the group chat. And
I did.
Bomani Jones, a media personality, had commented or replied to somebody who said, basically calling Kyrie a loser. And, you can't win with this guy no matter where he goes, right? He causes losing basketball. And I kind of went back and checked, right? Outside of his rookie year where that Cleveland team was terrible. But Kyrie Irving...
he was amazing on that team, though.
Kyrie Irving, since his rookie year, has been, by any metric you look at, a positive player when he is on the floor. Sometimes by a whopping wide margin. So I don't know that I can call Kyrie Irving a loser, right? Now,
you do know you can't as relates to basketball.
Correct.
That is not a fair label. Nope.
Cannot. First of all, he's one. No, I cannot call him a loser. That is just not possible. Now, there are issues that some people have with him in terms of how he comports himself as a teammate. However, David, I have, Henry, I'm sure you have. His teammates past, I have not gotten anybody to ever say anything poor about him on or off the record. So, in one sense, he's quite a very good teammate, they all say. Now, there's that public thing about, can we count on him? Will he show up to work? That piece of it, right? That seems to be something that isn't totally reliable. But Henry, you said there might be more there than just him being reliable. Maybe there's some trust factors eroding.
It's also complicated. Yes, there's a lot going on here, right? Like the thing that got me animated was some guy on Twitter said he hasn't played winning basketball since 2016. And then Bomani Jones said, this assumes anything short of a chip can't be winning. I'm talking about winning games. No deeper meaning to those games, just games. Kyrie hasn't been on a bad team in nearly 10 years. Acting like he showed up and messed up the Mavs is lazy. And I'm kind of like, I think we could probably give David like a month and a bunch of film, and he could like lead the world in explaining little, like, Kyrie's defense has never been remotely good. And he's done, come on. Before he wouldn't get immunized, he was out for other like, he's just like, his measurable level of emotional commitment to the cause of the team has been all over the shop, right?
And we can criticize. That's fair.
Low scores on complete availability for different reasons.
Low scores on availability. So there's that whole kind of ball of wax. But I'm also feeling like Bomani's right here in that, like, Kyrie Irving, I met him. I think he came to the draft lottery before he was drafted, and he was there with his with Jeff Wexler was his agent at the time. And Jeff's like, "Oh, you should meet Kyrie. He's like the nicest young man in the world." Blah blah. And as I shook his hand, I was like, "This dude is my size. Like, he is. I mean, and to be, he's top 10, 20 in the advanced stats every year at that size without playing defense, which means he's an absolute fucking wizard, right? Like his training is better than everybody else's training. Like, the way that he moves is ridiculous. I'm not the person to explain it to you, but it's like, it's obviously ridiculously good, right? Like, he's kind of like a better, like, Al. I mean, I grew up watching Allen Iverson, right? Like who was a miracle worker at his size,
much better version of Allen Iverson.
So like the one thing that really gets me is like the random guy on Twitter saying he hasn't played since 2016. It's like, it is a miracle to get from his size to where he has been, right? Like, he has worked so hard. And I think, like, so these things we can nitpick about defense. And I personally asked him on video in the earliest days of TrueHoop TV to respond to John Hollinger's claim that he is a flaming train wreck on defense.
sounds like a Hollinger description.
Yeah, Kyrie loved that. But I think so he's like A ++++ in like many skills, right? And maybe there's some stuff that you can see on video or in the news or in his views on Jews, right? Like, or any other things, right?
Or the world being flat,
where he's getting lower grades than A+++, right? Put it all together, and I don't know what we get, right? We get something that's like a radioactive substance, right? But it's not the case that this is a guy, like this guy on Twitter saying he's a loser, basically. It's like,
not true.
Dude, like, he put in extra time. He's been putting in extra time after every practice since he was born. Like, he's an absolute wizard in many regards and has won a lot because of it.
And so, Henry, what you're talking about, I believe you also said not only was he your size, he's the size of your mailman. I believe is what you said. I don't know the size of my mailman.
Actually, Jarod, I said milk carrier.
Oh, milk carrier. Right? Kyrie is an average Joe size guy, right?
He really is, yeah.
So I think it's those things you talked about. To be right, he's not a giant. And the NBA is a land of giants. To be that good in a land of giants, that is giving him feedback, right? Playing feedback. What I'm doing to get myself prepared to play is really fucking good. So why would I listen to anybody else telling me to do something different? No, I'm barely 6 foot in shoes, and I'm awesome doing this. Why am I going to listen to you telling me all these other things? What do you know about basketball? And so that trust erosion factor, and David, as a coach, first win the business to inspire, but in order to inspire, I got to build trust with you first, or else fuck, you're not listening to me.
One of my real issues with Kyrie as a player is he loves to lecture us as if we're all dummies and he's the only smart one in the room. But that there is a connection there. I've said publicly before, I think something mentally is going on with him, whether it's severe or not. I don't think it's severe, but there's a disconnect there that I am not certified to diagnose. But I know this: when you start acting like you are smarter than everyone, that is a symptom of something more significant going on. The comments about the world and Jews and everything else, to me, are a sign that something's happening there. I don't like being lectured by anyone. Personally, I don't care who you are. Albert Einstein and I would have some debate. Me and Henry do. But I definitely don't hear
I'm
it.
in pretty good company with that.
Right,
I like that.
right.
Yeah, that's fine.
He will argue with Isaiah.
Yeah. I just
I don't believe in that.
his tone is something that bothers me, but none of that should matter. The bottom line is this. Again, try to be as pragmatic as possible. The Boston Celtics were better when he left. That doesn't mean he wasn't winning with them. He was. They were winning more without him. And in fact, it really did good without him. In Brooklyn, had the pandemic never happened, hell, he could blame all his problems on Donald fucking Trump. Had the pandemic never happened, that team was unbelievable. Offensively, they were untouchable. And maybe it would have worked out great. That's on him. The Dallas problem, no, I wouldn't even, if I listed 20 things wrong with them that I've seen, he wouldn't make the list. He would not make the list. That doesn't mean down the road he won't make the list. He also might be the reason why they suddenly get better. That's possible too. But the idea that Dallas had to see this coming, they're getting Kyrie's best version, in my opinion. And the fact that it's still failing shows the fundamental foundational problems in the organization that the best version of Kyrie can't fix.
And that's an excellent point, David. Henry, there's another person in Dallas that takes up a lot of oxygen in the room, and not the one who sits in the luxury suites. We'll get to him in a minute. Luka Doncic is the sun that the Dallas Mavericks revolve around, right? And we all say on this show a million times, I mean, he is generational. Although David and I did like Jaren Jackson Jr. in that draft. His upside higher. Just going to put that out there. We're not looking so bad, David. We're okay.
We're fighting. We got a chance.
Yeah, we're looking okay. Luka, what is the Luka piece of this in this equation? Because, in everything that happens, really, there's always a hint or a twinge of race in the background, right? Luka is the white superstar. Kyrie is not. He was drafted by the Mavericks. He is their savior. He's the guy literally on the white horse coming in to rescue and save the day. He was predicted to be
Wait, was there literally a white horse?
Probably a white horse. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Predicted to win multiple MVPs, all these things, right? He is the man. Well, how much of it is let's blame Kyrie because we don't want to fault some of the things in Luka. David talked about defense. I can't tell you how many times I watch a game and the Mavericks get scored on because Luka's in the backcourt arguing with the ref about a foul call he didn't get. And they got 4-on-3 the other way or whatever. And yeah, we're toast because you're back here arguing or you're jogging back, still yelling at the ref. How much of that plays into it, Henry, the racial component?
I mean, also, this is Texas, right?
That's what I was going to say.
Kyrie got himself some cred in the Trump world, and then he went to Texas, right?
Yeah.
I could make a sort of shitty argument. It wouldn't be my strongest argument that there's a little bit of a history of pandering in this market, right? Yeah, they're definitely. I mean, there's just no way around the fact there are going to be some fans, right? This is a sport that struggled in the South, and there have been creative efforts, some of which echo Nixon's Southern strategy, right, to get people in big Southern markets to embrace NBA basketball, right? And
it's tough.
It's tough, and there's a lot of that. Mark Cuban spends a lot of time doing military events and just kind of there's some coding kind of stuff happens here, right? I don't know. And you're right. Luka's not a great defensive player, and they said after last season that he was going to come back and get better at that.
He's not a good one. He's not a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not great. He's not good.
He's not good.
Average at best. Right.
This team is exactly like the CJ Dame Blazers, right? It's exactly that, right? It's okay, so you got Luka is Dame, right? What the fuck are you gonna do? How are you gonna make this a winning team, right? And this is where pressure on the franchise, and the franchise isn't up to the task, right?
Yeah. But Luka, David, Luka shouldn't be Dame. He's 6'8". Okay, you're not super quick laterally, whatever, but you're fucking big as shit. Right? Come on, just your size alone should be a deterrent on defense.
Of course, you're right. I think we're losing. It's not us. I think everyone's losing track of a couple of important things, and I know that we've talked about it some.
The opposing star and
the franchise itself that team is not thick on talent, and so what we're asking in this case, Kyrie and Luka to do is a big ask. There's not a lot of talent around them, as I see it, and There's not a lot of what would you call elite athletes with great shot blocking skill. They're not a team that takes your breath away with their speed and explosiveness and all of that. And then I don't have it in front of me, but is Luka 23, 24?
23, I think. Let me pull him up right now.
Like, this is a young man.
Yeah.
Whatever he is a young guy.
24.
Yeah. So 24. Yeah. So this year he's turned 24. So he's allowed to get better. He's carrying a lot. And it takes a while to adjust to. I mean, Kyrie's by far the best offensive teammate he's ever had. Mm-hmm. Kyrie's better than anyone's offensive teammate pretty much ever had, with a few exceptions. And so he maybe, just in theory, let's say Kyrie went back there next year, you would think there's a discussion that's going on all summer to Luka about you don't have to save your energy for us offensively because we have Kyrie. Mm-hmm. That just doesn't happen overnight. And it's not going to happen probably this season or postseason, if there even is one for them. So these are all important factors. But what's interesting is how other than me, how is no one going back to the coach and management to this Henry's point? It starts with ownership. Who have you provided? You took away their best defensive player. Spencer was a good player. Kyrie's better, but he wasn't the problem, right? They need to address. You're better off trading Spencer for maybe 5 other guys that answer some things. They're just flawed. They're a very flawed team.
You mentioned athleticism. When I watch them, the only guys that come off the screen to me in that way with speed and stuff like that, it's like Josh Green and Christian Wood. That's really it. Nobody else on that. I'm like, yeah, you're all kind of below the rim guys, right? Like, is that about right for you, David?
Yeah, I mean, their starting center is Dwight Powell, and their backup is Maxi Kleber. Yeah, I mean, what I like both guys very much. Right. But Powell probably shouldn't be playing anymore. Maxi's a fine backup, but that's their center combination.
Bertans will play stretch 4-ish 5. Yeah. They go small, but
they're not an athletic team. I tell you what, they would do really well in the Big Ten.
Oh my God.
They would be a terrific Big Ten team, right? 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
David just downgraded an NBA team to
they would destroy the Big Ten, obviously. But
how many leagues down is that?
Yeah.
That's a million leagues down.
Yeah.
ACB,
I was being silly for a point, right?
I know.
They are just a muck it up, but that's not who their teams should be at all. And I haven't looked it up, but I bet their pace I think it's probably pretty far down. They're not. I watched them on tape a lot this morning.
28th in pace.
Yeah, I watched the games.
You're like, I don't need to watch.
This morning I watched, and tell you what, they're running a half court almost every time down because they're not flying. And with Luka, I mean, surround him with athletes. I mean, Kyrie's fine, but they failed dramatically. And guys, if we know anything, we know this: the second round and the G League and other places other teams that have an extra backup wing, whatever, that's an athlete. You can build an athletic team if you wanted to. They're looking at shooting, and that was it, and that was a huge mistake.
Henry, one of the things that you often talk about is the team structure and dynamic and the environment to incubate these seeds. I'm going to call these players seeds to flourish and be the best version of whatever plant they're going to blossom into. And I think we come to the realization that most places not really good incubators for any of this stuff, right? There's just nothing present or prevalent to allow growth at all. What's going on in Dallas?
I think there's there's a kind of urge to see Mark Cuban as like boy wonder, right. Richie Rich, like kind of like the everyman who tripped into a team, and I think there's something kind of fun about that for a lot of people, right? Where it's just like he just is a fan who cares so much, and but we're many years into this now, and he has won a championship. But I feel like there's like this, he has some ability to be smarter than his competition, and he loves that, right? It's like his favorite thing. He's the guy who wants to be judging every business on Shark Tank, right? Like he wants to be like, ha! And so, they got Rick Carlisle. I interviewed Wayne Winston, who was Mark's college professor, who's basically like, we have analyzed every coach in the league. We've seen who's the players who have production curves that are above average. And Rick Carlisle scored, only Phil Jackson beat him, basically. So like Mark has this moment of like rubbing his hands together and being like, you are a bunch of dumb shits and I'm the smart one, right? Mm-hmm. And he loves this kind of Harry Potter, like, bringing in the next wizard, right? Like, so it was Rick Carlisle for a long time, and they won a championship. And then, like, Rick had some sort of sordid implication. He just kind of had he's like, well, we'll see how this giant mess goes when he left, right? I know there was they were congratulating themselves when they got DeAndre Jordan. They the Knicks screwed up Dennis Smith, but we're gonna fix him. Kristaps Porzingis, Seth Curry was gonna be Haralabos was gonna come in and run the front office. Spencer Dinwiddie, they've thrown themselves so many. Jalen Brunson, right? So many times they've been like, we're smarter than everybody. And meanwhile, if you're Luka, who's been there since 2018, like every one of these people I just named was like the person who's going to partner with Luka to make something great, and then they just keep switching, right? And so right now it's Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison, Christian Wood, Kyrie Irving, right? Like, I'm guarantee you, Mark Cuban, if they really do miss the playoffs and the play-in and have this sort of very embarrassing turn of events with Luka, who is in his prime. I know he can get better, but you don't get better at 30. You really don't get better at 27, right? Like, you can, but it's most commonly like these next few years are his best years, right? Mark Cuban is not going to take the blame for Luka starring on shitty teams. So Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison, Christian Wood, Kyrie Irving, it might be you, right? You might be the ones who have to take the blame here. And we're just going to have Harry Potter is going to cast his next spell, and Luka's going to have his prime years go by with like some kind of Hail Marys.
I love it. Harry Potter.
I want to piggyback on something Henry said. I was friendly. I don't talk to him now too much, but I was friendly with Mark. And to the point, I did a couple of deals with him, even just because I knew him better than the agent did.
You guys don't know that David DJ's parties.
Yeah, that's not happening.
That's not what it was.
No. But when Henry twice said they won a championship, but it was more than that. They to me were the model of give your fans a fucking great team to watch, win 50 plus every year, give yourself a chance to win a championship. Play entertaining basketball, be pragmatic, pivot when depending on who your roster is. I really thought they were the model, and clearly, and maybe they were. Well, I think they were. They're not now. Henry listed off those names. Some of those players were good on Dallas, and they're good elsewhere. Some of them are better elsewhere, like Brunson, like KP. There was one more you said too. Wasn't Seth Curry? Like Dennis Smith, who actually is a pretty good player in Charlotte, who's been the best defensive team in the league in March. And so, and Rick, I mean, listen, it's hard to coach for a long time anywhere. And maybe that's what happened with Rick, it's not like Indiana's winning a lot of games, but they're pretty exciting. I think they'll be good next year. I think Rick can still coach some. Rick can. It's worrisome. It's worrisome. If you're Dallas, you should be thinking, what the hell are we doing?
Henry, I know that you're right on, David. What I wonder about that is, because I love that model, right? That's the thing. 50 games every year. In those lucky years, we'll go to the conference finals, maybe win an NBA championship, which is what happened to Dallas. But how much of that was Cuban being better than, or they had a superstar in Dirk Nowitzki who was willing to just deal with whatever the BS was going on behind the scenes? I'm just going to come out every night, play MVP level basketball. Whatever happens, happens, right? And we'll see.
Well, but let's be fair, though. Let's be fair. There's other places that have fucked up that same scenario. I'm not saying they were the smartest people in the room, but they were not the dumbest. They had one legendary, transformative talent, right? Best 7-foot shooter of all time, whatever. Though Cat's coming, especially if he can stay healthy. He's pretty good. And they turned it into, I know you couldn't get a ticket to Dallas. It was hard if you want to be a fan, not as a media person. It was the show, man. And that's not easy in a place that has the Cowboys. They did a hell of a job. And now behind the scenes, I can't address that. We all know with some things that were terrible there. It's not happening now. And they had a nice magical run last year. But when you can't at least be a top 4 or 5 team, it makes last year look like a fluke. And I think Henry nailed it when he talked about these were the variables. They keep changing those variables. But when you only have a foundation of one, that's not smart. Whatever you were doing before, it's not working now. I mean, hell, Tyson Chandler was in Charlotte and was done. I went to some games that he played that he didn't play. He sat the bench, and I really wondered, God, have we seen the last of him? Then he went to Dallas and became the defensive player of the year, world champion, made a bunch of money. Dallas did that. Well, that's not happening now. And so my only point is they should be asking a lot of questions. What the hell is going on? because
how long
we
is
have
Lucas Day, Henry? How long
Right.
before Lucas?
That's
like,
next.
I'm out of here.
That's
Get
next.
me on the next thing smoking.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky, right? This is the Damon CJ model also applies here, right? Like, like why would you have all this loyalty? Like, what would be the point of that, right? Like, I mean, if you want to win a championship, it might happen there, right? Like, the good thing for the Mavericks is that all the other teams are poorly run.
Not all, but many. Yeah. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's a very good point.
The
King of the dipshits.
The test scores are curved,
Right,
and,
right, exactly.
No one's gonna get an A. Like, you're looking right and left and like, hope you guys suck. Like, let them do.
I tell you, OKC is not going to be well liked.
Yeah,
because they got a chance. Their coach can really coach, and they're interesting.
And actually, this is the other point, right? Like, it would not surprise me if Kyrie becomes one of the story if he goes somewhere and fits like a glove, right? There might be a team that, like Rashid in Detroit kind of thing, right? Like where it's like, here's a super talented player who didn't believe in his team and didn't believe in his team and didn't believe and then did believe in his team, right? And like Kyrie in San Antonio, I don't think it's going to happen, but like that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Can Pop earn his trust in the organization, and then it's like, yeah,
etc. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think he'll be here.
No, Dallas doesn't seem like the likely fit. As we're talking about this Kyrie thing, he had a fan tossed out of the game. I want to say last night's game because they were, heckling and doing things. And during Kyrie's time in Brooklyn, he's often, when he goes to me and he's asked about these questions, he talks about, we're human beings, the human element. He's like, this is what I hate about this game. Like, we're humans. And he keeps hammering that message over and over and over again. And there's got to be something there, right? Like, for him to consistently mess it up, where he feels, connecting back to this whole idea of like earning trust and what have you, that he does not feel valued as a human being, right? In order to then let down whatever guard or wall so that I can open up and begin that relationship of trust. For whatever reason, there seems to be some disconnection there on the human element of things.
Well, I'll only add that he had no problem offending an entire religion and all scientists.
Sure.
So that's not nothing.
And that's what makes talking about Kyrie complicated, right?
100% right.
On the one hand, I hear you on this, but how do you then say all these things on the other hand, right? Or do these things that you don't know anything about on this hand?
Listen, Henry and I have been doing this a long time too, Jarod. We don't mind athletes who have an opinion. Obviously, we love that. We want to hear more of that, not just the canned answers you typically get. But if you're going to be public, then you're going to be held accountable for what you're saying. There are athletes who have spoken so eloquently. Like, to this day, if I could just listen to Muhammad Ali quotes, I'd be a happy man. The genius, he was a showman. But if you listen to Ali the way I did growing up, and this weekend I spent some time doing it again, there was so much genius in what he had to say. That's just not the case with Kyrie. So you're treating us as we're dumb, and we're holding a mirror and saying, who's dumb? Like, we're allowed to ask that question when it comes to the vaccine. When it comes to,
I suspect.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I suspect that if you dropped a regular person in the NBA and just had them go through the rigmarole of the beat writers and the coaches yelling and the the planes and the buses or whatever, I suspect that we would all be saying, like, this is so dehumanizing, right? Like, I think that that makes sense to me. Like, I physically stood there, like, looking at players going through this gauntlet, being like, it's wild.
The conveyor belt,
it's a really
terrible.
weird circus.
It is
right?
It's so stupid. And
it's. Yeah. I don't think that on that bigger point, Kyrie's wrong. I just think that, like,
no, he is right.
He's right.
He's
right.
He's
like,
right.
I'm all for people for some enlightenment on the inhumanity of professional sports, right? Like, I think I think he's being super authentic, and I think he's accurate. Like, I just think that public rhetoric for everyone is a minefield, right? Like, if you just have mics in front of your face all the time,
you're going to say something
and if on top of that, you don't have the most attuned ear to, like, the way the wind is blowing, and you don't have the most ability to make friends, and you're not doing shout outs to your teammates all the time, etc. Like it's not him being singled out. It's like, no, like, he's doing things no one could get away with.
Right.
Like, he's like, these points are poorly conceived and likely to stir up trouble in any setting. Yes, there's also racism. Yes, there's also, like, all of these things are also real. But man, like, he's just not very good at it.
Yeah,
public rhetoric part.
Correct. Yes.
No, and that's the last thing I want to say. We've talked enough about a team that's not going to make the play-in. You guys can keep talking if you want to. I'm out, except for this.
We just make these comments
right,
and then David just
right.
lapses into like the Nuggets or whatever.
We because celebrities are typically movie stars and other people in that world that we see a lot in the media, we know of some transformational situations. Robert Downey Jr. is one where this guy was way worse off than Kyrie. This guy was heading off a cliff and lucky to be alive. There's some famous musicians who could say the same thing. We could say the same thing about, and absolutely became beautiful, successful, happy, led a fulfilling life, and kind of made peace with everything. I'm rooting for that for Kyrie. To Henry's point, going back to the beginning about trust, I hope there's a coach out there that somehow can speak that language and basically say, hey, just I'm going to learn from you. You're going to learn from me. Let's work together so you can just have the best career you can have. And so this just becomes a part of your story and not your story, because we all can be better. And if he's willing to listen to that, which there's no reason to think he won't ever, he's got to do some things to get there. Let's hope that he does that, because he is, to Henry's point, like, I think he's the most talented, under the rim scorer of all time. Under the rim scorer. The guy that almost all, 99% of his baskets are under the rim. He's the best I've ever seen.
Brilliant.
We're doing a bad job ending this topic, but come on, that Robert Downey Jr. path to like adoration, where you get to be Iron Man after being like an abysmal drug addict, right? Like, or we all, I don't know, Jarod, but David and I listen to Smartless, which is like a lot of like Jason Bateman talking about his wild addiction years, whatever, like
openly,
like,
yeah.
But that path to go from like that to like literally like minivan driving moms are just like, oh, I love that Robert Downey Jr., right? Like that's a pretty white path.
For sure.
Correct.
Yes.
And,
but George Foreman was not loved. Ali wasn't either, actually.
Right.
He had a segment.
This, I think, matters for. I think Bomani Jones is picking up on this a little bit, right? Which is like, Kyrie is already being portrayed as not just like someone who had a whoops, but as like a clown.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And once you're a clown, you're never beloved again. Right. Like, he's seen as someone who's like the racist argument against Kyrie is that he's like malformed, right? That he's like destined to fail because of his very nature, right? Like, and with Robert Downey Jr., we get a little more of like, oh, well, I know someone.
It was Hollywood.
Yeah. I knew he could be good. There was goodness in him always. That's the. Well, this is a great way to segue into.
Yeah, we got this
into more race in the NBA. Austin Reaves is on the Point Forward podcast, a podcast that I know you listen to, Henry, with Andre Iguodala. I don't know if you listened to this particular episode.
I did not hear this one.
But listen, Austin Reaves is as David said, very good player for the Lakers.
Really talented player. Really talented
player. Yeah. And he also seems very pragmatic in understanding his place in the league and what his goals are. And he literally said, I want to make as much money as possible and be successful wherever I go. And I thought that was interesting, because he led with the money, which, by the way, I want to be very clear. I got no problems with that. Yeah. You want to lead with money? Like, we talked about Bomani Jones earlier. One of the things that fans love to do is talk about, well, you didn't win a championship, so you're a failure or whatever. And Bo's big thing is like, yeah, but I'm a legend at the bank, right? Like, that's what matters. When I go to the bank, I am a legend, right? Like, and so I'm good with that. Whatever your motivation is for playing, I don't care if it's money. Cool.
But most of them, I mean, I know a lot. The money is where we start. My job is to build their value so they can get paid more money. This is their business.
And I am 100% fine with that.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, because I wonder in a space if a black player.
Yeah, Mikal Bridges said that 3 years ago. Yeah.
How would that sound to
Rashid said that didn't go over well.
It did not go over so well. And so we and this is all tied around, Perk's poorly, said comments about, race being a factor in MVP voting, but we know that it is a factor in the world, so it has to be a factor in the NBA. And of course, there are going to be fans who, this is confirmation bias for them, right? Fits what I'm saying. I knew you guys only cared about the money, right? But I thought it was interesting that Reaves was able to say it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to go under the radar. No one's going to really say anything about it. Just fascinating.
Oh, well, this kind of segues into our Mac McClung thing too, right?
Yeah,
So we roll right into
let's
that.
roll right into Mac McClung, who a G League player. So he's not in the NBA right now.
He was a 10-day at best, right?
At best.
Yeah.
Well,
Warriors,
I believe. Yeah. He was in the dunk contest. Everybody get excited. Cool. I mean, his dunks were actually pretty good. Since he was in college, I was like, oh, this guy's got.
Where did he play in college?
Georgetown for a bit, and then I think he transferred.
Hofstra, maybe. I don't know why I think that. I have no idea.
But he definitely played there. Anyway, and so Georgetown and then Texas Tech. That's where he went after that.
Oh, wow. It's big time.
The Hofstra of Texas.
I don't know why I thought Hofstra.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a Hollywood movie that's coming out. And in a movie promo, Mac McClung is in this movie promo with Vince Carter. And I thought, well, this is pretty interesting. He's not even an NBA player. Like, he's probably not even the best dunker in the NBA. I wonder. And it all ties into this idea of, and Henry, you've heard of this story in the movie, The Great White Hope, right? And it's all tied to this idea of when the heavyweight champion of the world was Jack Johnson, right? A black man. It's like, no, we have to find somebody who can defeat him, right? That's when boxing was the most popular sport in the world. It can't be true that this guy is the heavy. No. A white man's got to be able to do it, right? And so that sort of idea of the white hope, right, has always permeated sports where black people tend to dominate, like the NBA. You can go all the way back to Larry Bird, right? And the comments that Isaiah Thomas and Dennis Rodman had, right? It's just on and on and on and on and on. So I thought it was fascinating. Wanted to bring it to the group.
So there's this Mac McClung thing, actually, the day that it happened. So what happened? Shaedon Sharpe dropped out of the dunk contest. And so they had to add someone. And then the Sixers signed Mac McClung on like fucking Thursday, right? Yeah. Something like this.
Yeah, really.
And then he becomes the Great White Hope on Saturday. And then that's in February, right? And then he's the star of a major motion picture campaign. And he's the protagonist. Like in this promo for Dungeons and Dragons, like the camera opens on his white face and he's navigating the challenges of the dragons and the smoke and the whatever. And then he has a little conversation with Vince Carter, right? So when they signed him on that Thursday and then he went on Saturday, I was like, what's the driving force here? Did the Sixers want a different 12th man? Or did somebody need this guy to be in the league so he could win this competition? Right? Like, because as dunk champion, his reach is global. He's a big factor, a big media factor for the league. And he was for several days. Mac McClung was the biggest story in the NBA, right? Yep. And I'm not saying I know what happened here, but I will say this. This is Dungeons and Dragons ad. What date was it shot? Like, because these major motion picture campaigns, I've been in some of these meetings. Yeah. I've been in a number of these meetings. Yeah. I've nearly fallen asleep in these meetings. But they are booking the ad time for this 6 months before.
Correct.
Sometimes they're we're having meetings. This movie's coming out in whatever, I'm going to guess April. They were having meetings about this in October.
Correct.
Right? Like about who's going to be, how are we going to do it, blah, 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 right? They might have just shot it. They might have booked all the campaign and then shot it. That could be true. But they might have fucking had Mac McClung on tape in December. And then, with a giant budget thing, and the world needs to know who he is. And he needs to be in that fucking contest. It's the only hope, right? Yeah. I don't know what order things went. I don't want to spread their, and we may well learn after this podcast that all of this happened last week. They can do that.
Sure.
There's special effects in that ad. It just took a while.
No, they could do both. You can plan in October and then just pivot when you realize, hey, there's an opportunity here. And it's probably what ended up happening, right? They obviously weren't talking about Mac McClung in October. They were just saying, we're doing an NBA gig. We know.
I don't know.
But we know they weren't.
Zero. No, I don't. Honestly, David,
in October?
Honestly, I swear to God, we don't know that. Like it's totally possible. I believe it's absolutely possible that somebody called someone and was like, we need fucking Mac McClung on our roster. Like, who's got me?
Oh, because he was already going to be in the commercial to begin with.
Yeah.
Now I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna give you my opinion, and I'm gonna use Spud Webb and Malcolm Gladwell. You ready?
I'm ready.
So Spud Webb was the talk of. Now he actually was in the NBA, but he was amazing in his dunk contest. America has embraced slam dunk champions. I don't really know many of them, but most of them have been black. We know that. However, if you remember the great speech that Gladwell gave about tomato sauces, right? You guys, we probably have said this on the show before, when that genius guy figured out that they have spicy and they have regular, but nobody was making extra chunky. And there's a segment of society that really likes extra chunky. And that's how Prego overtook Ragu and they've always been in first place ever since. Sadly, tragically, in America, the NBA fans, the one area they can't breach are the racists, the people that just want the sports too black. And so some genius in the NBA headquarters may have been thinking, wait a second, we can do everything we're still doing and reach that segment too? We got to find us a McClung. That to me is what I was thinking when all this is going down, is that brings in you're not the regular NBA fans would root for whomever or not root for them if they weren't excited by the dunks. I did not see the dunks, or if I did, I don't remember them. But I've heard they were pretty good. Like, he deserved to win the contest. Right. But that would be the same no matter what color they were in of the regular fans. But to get another segment to be a fan. And remember, I'm now much more skeptical of the NBA and how they're thinking. I'm more in probably Henry's line of thinking that it might have been a decision. We've got to get a white face and get, because we'll that's, by the way, that's the NFL audience. That's not solely the NFL audience, obviously, when 1 billion people watch that stupid sport. But yeah, it is. It's a sad reality. And meanwhile, I don't know Mac. I know his agent. It seemed like a nice man. I don't know if the guy's ever going to make it. This is going to be the highlight of his life, and he's 23 years old, whatever.
Listen, if he's going to work in and turn it into a payday, Godspeed to him.
Yeah, for sure.
It is interesting though, Henry, like with the whole race thing, how who happens to be the sage man giving him advice in the it's a black man, it's Vince Carter, right? That whole the movie trope of like,
I didn't see
it. How does the white protagonist get? Well, the sage old black man gives him advice and gets him, and gets him across the line. It's listen, I'm not saying it's nefarious. I'm just saying it is just easy for skeptical. Everyone to fall into these. This is how it goes. This is what we do here.
Well, if they put it's a little harder for a lot of fans to get excited about the commercial if the first face, the protagonist, is black, right? Like, Black Hollywood doesn't have quite the same box office history as white Hollywood, right? Like,
but how do we?
And
go ahead.
Like, they've navigated this, right? Like, the NBA, was very consciously. Like, I personally witnessed like the VP of the NBA going over to Kevin Garnett and just begging him to take out his diamond earring before they made the ESPN promo. Mm-hmm. Why? She said, like, because they have data. People don't like it, right? Like, and they airbrushed Allen Iverson's tattoos off the cover of the magazine, right? Yep. Like there's not, like, you're right. There's like a, I when I got my NYU degree, honorary degree that day, Sidney Poitier, whose daughter was in my class, but like Sidney Poitier was like a certain presentation that was like, America was like,
we can accept this.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Like, but the Allen Iverson version was like a little more like, no, like, and the NBA fucking managed that difference. They manage. They've always managed. They're very, very like, and a cynic would say that the NBA's message to players is don't be too black, right? And we have the Malice in the Palace, like everybody dressed like Sidney Poitier, right? Like, basically what they said.
That's
right?
That's exactly it. Yeah. It's present.
So, yeah, it's not just this. Like, I appreciate what you're saying about the racist segment, but like, I think more it's like, no, there's like this is just like if you're running for office or trying to star in a movie, like broad audience of America,
broad appeal.
Doesn't love Allen Iverson.
But like, who do you guys watch the NCAA tournament at all? Do you know who the face of the NCAA tournament is every year now? Charles Barkley, Spike Lee, Magic Johnson. Who am I forgetting? I said those.
But David, Charles Barkley and Magic Johnson are among the most palpable people to white people in. Right? Like they fit a certain Like that's the goal. Who is? It's like why did we had a black president, right? But he had to be the right kind, right? And it was Barack Obama. Nobody else could.
He had the big Harvard endorsement,
right? The Harvard endorsement. He's black, but he's not too black, right? In a number of ways.
White grandmother.
There you go, right? It's got to be palpable for a large swath. And when we say large swath, we generally mean white people, right? That's generally what they're saying when they mean large swath.
Well, you just can't get, like, it doesn't make me happy to say this, but like, you can't get how many votes do you need to win president? I don't know, like 100 million or something. Right? Like,
no, 80. Fighting at 80.
80 million?
Yeah.
Like, you just can't get to 80 million without some people who are a little nervous about how Allen Iverson presents himself. Like, that's just how the numbers go.
That's for sure.
And
that's just math.
Meanwhile, and then same system, right? Same way. Like I'm stuck on this point, and I will be forever. Like Marcus Smart tumbles into the stands.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy, hard player, like racist as fuck, old white guy, calls him the worst thing. And he just for a moment has a reaction, and the commentator, the fans, everybody
it's his fault.
says that Marcus Smart needs to learn you don't act like that. Like, what the fuck? That's a super racist system.
Correct.
Right? Like, they tell every fan at home that Marcus Smart fucked up. It's like, are you crazy? Like, we're just protecting this guy, like this old KKK member, whatever the fuck he was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No.
Perhaps I derailed just a little there.
No. We are all good. I did a thing this morning as we transitioned back to on the floor. I was looking at the Western Conference because I think the East, first of all, the top teams in the East, everybody's clinched up to spot 4.
Yeah, Cleveland's in now.
Okay. In the West, we only got 2 teams clinched. 3 through 6 is still, I don't know, anybody. I think Sacramento will hold on to 3. But 4 through 6, shit, anything can happen there. What are we thinking about 4 through 6 right now? Right now it's Phoenix. Golden State is 6. Clippers are 5. Well, we know no Paul George, so not looking great. And Kawhi's got a face contusion or something. Something happened to him, but I think he's playing. Phoenix still doesn't have Durant back yet. Ayton, I think, will be back tonight.
Yeah.
And then Golden State's getting hot. Well, they lost the second out of a back-to-back last night. I mean,
right.
Golden State ends up 4.
It's a tough game.
Well, Golden State ends up 4. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's possible. Yeah, I think Phoenix and Golden State are in better situations. I think Golden State's looking like themselves more. Getting Andrew Wiggins back would be just.
Well, I don't know about that, but they're getting Gary Payton the second back. Yeah,
he played.
Him back.
He played the last night. Yeah.
Okay. So they're
Kerr was hoping that he'd be back, and I talked to some people behind the scenes that thought he could be back.
Oh, they think he will be back. Okay.
They think he could be back. Yeah, but I mean, how good is he going to play? Who knows? They can't do without him for sure.
No.
It's a tough road. Phoenix, I think, has the best. They have the rosiest outlook. I think Phoenix has the rose because Kevin Durant will come back, and he's always been just fine when he comes back. And Ayton coming back too would help. But these are all very flawed teams compared to the big 3 in the East. They really are.
Even go ahead, Henry.
The Mavericks and Jazz are the ones that are kind of outside looking in right now. Are they going to be? Well,
because if you're Utah, what's the incentive to lose? You're not in the Wemby sweepstakes. You can't lose enough games now, so you're not going to get them. So, I mean, David, you agree with this? Win games and get into the play-in. Give your young guys a chance.
I don't think they're against that. Yeah, they don't look to me like they're not trying to win. They're
2 games behind like the Thunder and the Lakers, and like they just have 7 games left.
Right,
like,
it's hard to catch up to that. Yeah.
They're probably not going to do this.
Right, probably not.
Can the Pelicans, not the Pelicans, excuse me, can the Timberwolves sneak into the top 6?
How far back are they now?
Half a game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and they're starting to play better. Had been for a while,
especially if the Clippers sink without Paul George.
I didn't look up Minnesota's numbers in 2023, but they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cat's back. So,
Yeah.
Well, my guess is if the Mavericks and Jazz, who are 11 and 12 right now, are out, then like our top 10 are set.
Yeah.
Does Dallas have the lottery pick? Did they trade it? I don't remember.
No. Oh,
see, I thought it was better. I would know that.
That's brutal for them if they don't have their first round pick.
I don't remember. I just not paid attention to it because you didn't expect it to happen, but
it's good. And are you still right now? I was looking at 538's likelihoods to win the championship. The 3 East teams are, of course, tops. They have Celtics first, then Bucks, then Sixers. The Grizzlies at 4th.
Oh my god,
David, listen, this is our obligatory. We got to talk about the Grizzlies for 2 seconds. Hottest team in the league. 9-1 in their last 10, winners of 6 straight. How are you liking how Memphis is looking lately?
I've not really paid much attention.
All right, that's okay.
Since I've been watching more of the NCAA tournament, I will start again this week. Right. And I'm going to see the Pelicans in person soon.
Is there something you want to say about the Grizzlies?
I honestly, winning a good season for them, given everything that's gone on, would be to see them advance another round. Yeah, get to the conference finals. Right. That would be
certainly possible.
Win 2 playoff series. Like
everything in the West is possible because there's no dominating team. And all the teams are fine. I mean, the lower level ones, they're not terrible. It's like we've had some terrible, like Orlando when they kept running the 8th spot, like they were bad.
Yeah,
those teams are not terrible.
Like, there's a real decision for every fan of every NBA team, which is like, are you excited to be in there with a chance? Like, or do you want to win a championship, right? Like, it totally is different, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know I've told the story before, but like when the Clippers got Baron Davis and like went from irrelevance to relevance, like Kevin Arnovitz was like, basically like, you don't understand. This is the goal, right? Like, meanwhile, it was like they were never, ever going to win a championship with that setup, like the salaries and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, is that good or is that not good? Right. And like, I feel like this with the Grizzlies a little bit right now, where it's like, I think everything is possible, but like, is it good enough to be like duking it out with the Nuggets in the conference finals? Is that a great year, or do we need to get a title? Like, what's the
yeah, well, it will certainly be interesting. I like conference finals is what that would make me happy. I'd be good with that. Okay. We'll see. Lakers are back and LeBron's back. They are in the play-in. They're 8th right now. He thinks we can get a top 6 seed. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think you guys are, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe they can. Whatever. What's more interesting is LeBron was out for 13 games with a torn tendon in his foot. Well, it's not his Achilles tendon, because then he'd be out for the whole season. So it's one of the other 2 tendons. Don't know which one.
Can you name them?
I actually did write this down somewhere.
Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed.
Hold on, no, I can't. Here's a question I have for you, that I will tell you because I wrote it down. Should we know which tendon it is that he tore? Does it matter?
Yeah, I went and looked up this 2019 Brian Windhorst story, where he talks about how like the league's taking millions from MGM to deliver like real-time injury information with integrity. And at that time, the sort of poster child of this was like Damian Lillard had injured his ribs in a like maybe game 2 of the playoffs, and then was kind of playing super hurt in game 3, but nobody knew that. And the idea was like the league's promised MGM that they're going to provide this kind of info, anything that would affect the betting lines. And then the people from MGM said that they weren't upset about it because blah, blah, blah. But it is like, in a gambling centric league, where, bettors really freaking care about who's banged up or not. And there's like some discussion about, should everybody's MRI results be public, and on and on and on. Like, we're supposed to know. Right. And meanwhile, not too long before Brian's story, LeBron said after losing the finals that he'd played the last 3 games of the finals with a broken hand. Like, that was the absolute pièce de résistance of like, well, that is the kind of thing that is like supposed to be public, right? And for fans and for gamblers. So I don't know, but it looks to me like LeBron is like lording over us, right? Like, I mean, he's coming back. He's played a game. And then Dave McMenamin asks him, what was your injury? Like, the most famous player in the world has been out for 13 games.
Either his posterior or his peroneal. Those are the 2 other tendons in the foot.
Fraud. Yeah. So like, this is so crazy to me. Like Dave McMenamin's like, what was the injury you were dealing with? And then LeBron's silent, and he looks at Dave. And then he looks at the horizon, and he's kind of deciding, like, am I actually going to answer this question or not, right?
It's like asking Tony Stark if he's Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly. And then he says, the injury I was dealing with? Like, this has been LeBron's, he's been doing 3-a-day rehab. Like, he fucking knows what his fucking injury is, right? Like he has stacks of books this tall on this injury, right? Like, and then he says, I tore a tendon in my foot. And then he says, I mean, just on my point of privacy, right? He says, why did you decide against surgery? And he says, because I went to the LeBron James of feet, and he told me I shouldn't. And then if I end up having to get surgery after the season, you guys won't know. I don't talk to you guys in the off season. By the time next season starts, I'll be fine. I'll be ready to go. Like, he's lording over them that you'll never have to know, right? And then Dave asks, what country is the LeBron James' feet based in? He says, I don't know. I have no idea.
This is so good to unpack. So many things here. So you guys all know this. When you're in it, or maybe you don't, but like, I'm sure you do. When I was in my other career, I would media train people or whatever. And one of the tricks when you're looking for an answer to search is to repeat what the person just said, right? As you're figuring out in your brain, all right, do I want to lie or tell the truth here, right? This is so the whole, what kind of injury did I have? Like, he's searching to figure out, what am I going to say right now?
He's waving a big red sign that says bullshit coming.
Now, again, foot injury may be enough, right? For bettors, MGM. LeBron out foot injury. That might be enough to know. Do I need to know what your posterior or perineal? Why does that matter? Like,
I mean, I have an ingrown toenail right now, Jarod, and I'm telling you, I could probably play in the NBA as I am.
You could, right now, you're okay.
It is a foot injury, though.
True, you're right. Okay. So maybe a little bit more detail. And then the LeBron James' feet. Of course, he, being who he is, he sees the top medical and professional in every field because he can. What do we as the public have a right to know about those meetings with those people? And then, thirdly, where is the LeBron James' feet based? Well, LeBron, if he's somewhere else and not in the U.S., why do you feel like you have to go to Germany or wherever to go get this kind of treatment? It's all interesting and fascinating, and it really comes down to what do we have rights to know when it comes to health? And I don't know. I don't have any, like, to me, the what country thing was a funny, obvious, like Dave covered Kobe, right? Like, so you would know
what country was like kind of a
did you go to Germany?
Like, half joke kind of allusion to this, right? And by the way, that therapy that Kobe got in Germany was like it's totally standard now, right? Like, it's just not everyone does it now. Like, like it was surprising to some people, but like that was not the smoking gun of doping in the NBA, right? The PRP, right? Like, but to me, LeBron saying, I don't know, I have no idea. Like, this was like, to me, he's giving less of a shit and he's less artful in being secretive about. He's just like, whatever, what are you guys going to do to me? Like, I'm, like I'm 150 years old. Like, I've talked to you guys a million times. Like, what? Like, it's
nothing.
He's like, he's dropping the guard a little bit, right? He's like doing a very poor job of what he's always been very good at, which is just keeping his health information, like his weight. Has been entirely secret his entire career, right? Like,
nobody knows.
He's got a guy who's moved from team to team with him as a personal trainer. He spends $1 million a year on his body. He says he has a special bus to drive around in. Like, just the way that, there's a former special forces guy who like does something with his movement quality or something. And, there's just like, he's been very clear that he doesn't owe us anything in that regard. And, I don't personally feel like I have to know what's happening in his private meeting with his doctor, but like the factors that govern Lakers wins and losses are also not knowable to us, right? And
how much do we think does he tell the Lakers about what's going on? Because clearly when he's hurt, he ain't seeing, well, it's not Gary Vitti anymore, but whoever, or is it Gary Vitti? I don't know.
No, it's not Gary Vitti.
He's not talking to that guy. Whoever's the head of that ain't the person he's talking to. How much do they know about what's going on?
Well,
do we think they know?
The Lakers don't have a good reputation as being the like team that's earned trust in like injury recovery, right? For a while, the guy that they had was like Jeannie Buss's like celebrity Beverly Hills trainer, right? So I think it's, on most teams, it's a problem that like, or other teams, they've like the highest bidder, right? Like the hospital system with the highest bidder, gets to be the person who like you consult with. And like, so the players have very little reason to believe in like this set of doctors. I know that we from the outside think like, oh, they have the best of everything. It's like, that's seldom the experience, right? Like, David could tell stories all day about completely effed up diagnoses and completely effed up everything, right? So I imagine LeBron goes to whoever he wants to go to and tells the Lakers whatever he wants to tell them and no more, right?
Yeah. They want updates on when you think he'll be back. That'd be about it. That's all he's really supposed to tell them.
And it's just fascinating. And it is something that I think, we can do a whole show about what, EPO and what we think actually, all that. But all of this is very fascinating. David, you did some homework this weekend. You were watching the NCAA tournament and you had a thought about the tournament and the pending NBA draft in June.
Correct. I was really a lot of talk right now about the NCAA tournament is how many transfer players were the dominant force, and just how there's no freshmen that'll be in this draft that are playing coming up here, or at least none that are going to be drafted. I'm not sure I remember seeing any freshmen. I saw one yesterday, really good from here actually for Texas, but they lost. They're not in the Final Four. He didn't do much anyway. I think he scored 2 points. It's college game's a grown man's game now. Transfer portal is everything. And there's a player I fell in love with at Miami. I've watched Miami a bunch. I've never paid attention to this guy, but he's my son's favorite player in terms of projecting NBA talent. There's two guys that I love. The one I was talking about is older. His name is Jordan Miller. He's 23. And so I texted a guy that he does a mock drafts himself that I subscribe to. Why isn't anyone's mock? He said, well, he's 23. So I'm going to read you off a list of names here, guys. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start with number 9, 2021. Davion Mitchell, Zaire Williams, James Bouknight, Joshua Primo, Chris Duarte, Moses Moody, Corey Kispert, Alperen Sengun, Trey Murphy, Trey Mann, Kai Jones, Jalen Johnson, Keon Johnson, Isaiah Jackson, Usman Garuba, Josh Christopher, Quentin Grimes, Bones Highland, Cameron Thomas, Jaden Springer, Daron Sharp, Santi Aldama. All right. Those are all
drinking, David?
No. I got a little hiccups with me. Those players are all first round picks, maybe 4 or 5 or even memorable guys that really we think might make it as more than just barely a rotation guy. And that was just first round. Second round's almost none of them are doing anything. Yep. Why are we afraid to draft a guy who's 23?
Wait, what is that list, though? That list is 18-year-olds or something?
No, those were all first-round picks, of which most of them will never really make it.
Oh, I see.
They just kept drafting young guys. Typically, that Duarte's older. He was all rookie last year. He's not doing as well this year. But most of those guys aren't going to make it. So this idea that we should be drafting young guys because maybe they'll be all-stars, but in reality, they may not play for us well for 2 years and maybe never really make the league, when you could draft a 23-year-old that projects like he's going to be a solid player. Who cares if he's 23? Most of those guys are 21 and 22 that they're playing against now. They're not dominating freshmen typically anymore, especially at this level. I think it's very short-sighted. So the 23-year-old that looks like he's fantastic and has the prerequisite length, size, skill, strength, athleticism, draft him and get yourself a decent player, a positive player. And our league we're so worried about, we got to find the next all-star. And we keep swinging and missing. Strikeouts are bad in basketball, too.
Well, this is Cam Johnson, right?
Yeah.
The reason why people didn't want to draft him is because, he's already 23. Okay, he may not be a all-NBA player, but he is a above-average NBA starter. And newsflash, if you're building a team, you need above-average NBA starters on your team.
And you got him on a 4-year cheap deal.
Yeah.
Those guys are ready to play pretty much right away, at least close to it. And you're paying them chump change compared to what you pay a veteran that's equally as good. I just think it's short-sighted by the NBA to not look at older guys who absolutely you have to guess that they're going to definitely make your team, and especially if they get on rotation minutes, it's worthwhile to grab them.
Well, go ahead, Henry.
I have the most outrageous possible analogy to make, which is I've been listening against my better judgment to a podcast called You Must Remember This, which is like about the sordid history of Hollywood. And season 3 is about Charles Manson, who has like unbelievable overlaps with Hollywood. It's just the whole thing is like,
jeez,
what? Okay, but Charles Manson is a cult leader, right? And he needs to dupe people into believing in him, right? And so he tells his followers that basically if they hang in long enough, they will literally grow wings, right? They're going to become supernatural, right? And so they have to keep believing in him for this reason, right? And so why the fuck did I bring this up? Because like if you have an NBA GM job, right, the most important thing in the world is that the billionaire believe in you, right? Like an 18-year-old who maybe has some crazy anthropomorphic measurements or some crazy something at the, is someone who you can concoct the supernatural around, right? Like you have to believe in me because I'm your connection to infinite potential 18-year-old, right? Like David's talking about actually using real skill to actually concoct a winning team with Jordan Miller, right? Like
that's the supernatural thing. Win. Win. Keep winning.
But if you're selling horse shit, you need the 18-year-old, right?
Yes, yeah.
If you're selling winning, then the 23-year-old is obviously better because the odds are the 5 years it takes for your 18-year-old to become 23-year-old, you won't last that long, right? As a GM, right? You're probably, even if you're selfishly just like trying to keep your job, like there's an argument for Jordan Miller, which is just put him out there and have him stop somebody and then dunk it, right? Like that's pretty helpful.
He looks like he plays a lot like a quicker RJ Barrett, not as powerful, but they're very similar. 6'7", lefty, big, strong, athletic. But he didn't look that when he was 18, because if he did, he'd have been drafted in the lottery. But now that he actually continued to work on his game, and you don't have to pay any money for it, the college guys did, you won't draft him. It's just we'll see. If they win the national championship, they might draft him.
But this is at the heart of what you do, which is player development. And which you've long said doesn't happen in the NBA, right? I talked about at the top of the show.
Even more important, you drafted 23 They've already been developed.
These teams are not incubators to let these seeds sprout up. They're just not. They're not designed for that.
So why they keep drafting them? I'm not against drafting young guys at all. I'm just saying the whole game should be acquiring talent, whatever the age is. And if we think we can grow this guy to be a home run hitter, great. But singles are valuable too. This is something Henry said. Henry and I have been talking about this a long time, but he first started talking about it. When you play a player that's a negative on your team, it's a huge problem for your team. Play nothing but good players, and you're so much better. That's what these guys can be.
If you can put in Jordan Miller in the minutes that Kevin Knox is playing.
That's right. Right.
I mean, we see this play out in the most visceral way every postseason. That one weak player that team has.
Can't hide him. Same in baseball. You can't hide him.
Every time. Yeah. Every time. David, before we go, Jaylen Brown has been on a tear lately scoring the basketball, and the Celtics are back up in second spot. But you know who has not been on a tear scoring the basketball? It's Jason Tatum.
I do. 31% in this month. 31% from three on over 9 threes a game. I watched tape on him over the weekend. He's really struggling as a shooter. I mean, like bad. Like he was
just variant. Like is his shooting variance? Or are you seeing mechanically, or is he just
he looks fine to me. It's just not, and he's not had a good year. I think he's down to 34% from three. He's not even had a great month. I'm not sure he's been out of the 30s at any month this year. Not one time. If so, it may be October. It's something to keep an eye on for Boston. They really need Jason Tatum to be the MVP caliber player that he is. The first team All-NBA last year. That's not the guy we're seeing right now. That's a big part of why they're struggling. Why they've not played as well as it is.
Can we just get a week off? Can we just?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And actually the answer is yes. Yes. You might fall from 3 to 4. What does that matter? Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Boston.
Well, they're in 2. Boston's 2. So they might hold.
Right. So they might fall to 3.
Now.
Right. But even if they fall to 3, whatever, it doesn't matter. You lose home court advantage, but you got Jason Tatum back. Yeah. He's just been off. So it's something to watch.
And which is the team that's going to do that and be smart and say, you know what? It doesn't matter. Let's give our guys a week rest right now. We'll be fine come the playoffs because this will be better in the long run.
Denver, because they're going to probably have clinched first seed.
Who's brave enough? Who is the GM and the head coach brave enough to stand in front of the media and take the slings and arrows and get killed on talk radio?
Well, Ja already did it, right? Like,
well, but that was forced. That wasn't on pin and plan.
But it's rest.
Yes, it is rest.
Right? It's super helpful, right?
Yeah,
like
very
he's
helpful.
Bouncier.
He looks bouncier. Very springy.
Yeah.
It's. I think Denver will rest Jokic.
Nobody. You're right.
As soon as Jokic wins as soon as they win the first seed, they'll rest him. But I understand your point. You shouldn't just do it when you've clinched your seed. You should do it no matter what your seed is because you want more rested stars.
All right, really quick prediction before we go. We've got a titanic matchup tonight between the second seeded or third seeded Philadelphia 76ers in the East and the number 1 Denver Nuggets in the West. Many people are going to say tomorrow morning, all those idiotic shows, this is for the MVP, blah, blah, blah. Not necessarily who's going to win, but what's going to happen in the game. David, I'll let you go first.
I think Embiid's going to go hog wild to try to score 50. Like you said it to me off air. I think you're right. And I think his team's going to help him because they support him. But I think the Denver guys are going to do the same thing with Jokic, who already has 2 and doesn't want it nearly as badly. Jokic is at a point now where he wants to win a championship. Yeah, he's already got 2 of those trophies. They didn't help him win.
What if his teammates are like, screw that, we're going to push him forward to get it? That'd be so great. Henry, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I was just immediately reminded me of the last game of the season a few years ago was Giannis in Philadelphia. Well, he was with his teammates, the Milwaukee Bucks. And it was extremely exciting. And like Embiid and Giannis ended up guarding each other a lot and just physical. And I remember I was sitting pretty close and I was like, I had the sensation. I was like, maybe Joel Embiid is going to like take out Giannis. Like it was like a battle, right? It was a little on the edge of mania, right? Like it was a little bit of like, whoa. Mm-hmm. And I don't even remember who won the game. I think the Bucks did. But anyway, it has occurred to me that like Joel Embiid wants this so bad. And he's emotionally volatile in a way that was like, imagine Sixers fans love, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I was sort of joking, but like on our call this morning, I was like, 30% chance Embiid's gonna deck Jokic or something, right? Like not because he's like got evil in his heart, but just because he wants to work hard for this thing. He wants this so bad. And so yeah, I would watch with a little bit of an eye on just like his temperament.
Yeah. His disposition to dominate, as David Thorpe likes to say.
Yes.
He's
got that.
Be a high level.
And,
be a high level.
And a disposition to fall down. Like,
and a disposition to deck somebody. All right, folks. We will see you later on in the week. Take care.